Good morning, Jamie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know over the past 6 months, you have really helped me grow personally and with Mills Knows Bills. So I'm really honored and excited to have you on the channel and be able to kind of tell everyone a little bit about what you do. So that's actually a great place to start. Why don't you tell everyone about yourself, your background, and what you do for a living?
So I am a life coach, and I started off as a personal trainer who then was a health coach. And in all of that, I really got into the idea of what makes people do the things that they do to make them change habits. And so mostly what I work with now is people and their mindset and how they take themselves from, I have this little idea, to execution and like what makes them do the things that they actually want to do.
Okay, so I mean, I can obviously attest firsthand to taking a small idea and making it, something larger. But today I really want to hone in on something key that you said, which was mindset. So for today's video, how can you as a life coach help someone that's struggling with money? What are some of the mindset things that go on with that?
I mean, money is something that like you think of as just numbers, and like, oh, if I just do the right things, then it'll all work out. But what happens is that people are people, right? So they have all kinds of, things they were taught when they were kids, things they weren't taught, like things that were like implied, like, and that there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of energy behind money, with how you think about it, how you earn it, how you spend it, mostly how you spend it, and what you do with it in terms of taking this. There's always people that like, no matter how much they make, they never have enough. Or the opposite end of it is like, you can't figure out how to make more, but you always make do, right? And both of those are like the extremes, and then everybody else kind of like hangs out in the middle. But there's this idea that you can actually change the way you think about it. And if you can change the way you think about, your money story, why wouldn't you do it?
That's true. So, I mean, you're talking about the two extremes, and someone watching this video, how can they identify where they are on that spectrum? How are they able to identify if they have any aversions to money and ultimately learn to overcome them?
I think it's like you got to look at your language, right? You got to look at the way that you talk about money, the way you think about money. And so like, if you're always like talking about how money is bad, money is evil, those people, rich people are this, poor people are this, like the language behind it really makes a big difference. So if you're always talking about how, you can't, like any of the language that makes it like, oh, I don't have enough money for that. It's like, what if you just change that story to like, oh, that's not a priority for me right now. Right. And like, so it's like, oh, my priority is working this many hours, so I have this much money. And then it becomes neutral. So it's taking the like things that you make the assumption on and changing that assumption. You don't have to believe everything you think, man.
That's very interesting. You don't have to believe everything you think. Oh man. Okay.
So
So
like, if you challenge your own thoughts all the time, right? Like if you're like, I can't afford that. And then you're like, oh, that's not really a priority for me right now. It's like, oh, that's a different story, right? Or, oh, I don't want to spend my energy on that, right? You start thinking of money as energy or money. If you take the word money out and like replace it with something else, would you be okay with that? Right? So it's like, oh, I would, or the other side of it is the spending side of it, right? Like, this is a priority for me right now. It's like, oh, $5 coffees every day are a priority for me right now. How does that feel when you say that? Right? Or you're like, oh, that seems kind of weird that I'm spending, you know, $150 a month on coffee. Oh, spending $150 on coffee right now is a priority. And so it's like, And that might be okay because it's all neutral. It's all yours. You can decide this, but it's like really looking at it at a different way, at a different side, so that you can change the language behind it. And then that changes the way you think about it.
I love that so much. Challenging your thoughts. That is, I mean, because you're right, money is very emotional. And I think, working on changing your mindset can really help someone get past, that block that they have. But speaking of money blocks, do you see any common money blocks when you sit down with your clients?
Oh yeah. I mean, money blocks, everyone has them. This is, and they're just something to work through, right? So it's like whatever your money block is, right? If you are I can make a ton of money, but it is all going back out, you just have to figure out how to like put the stop on it or figure out where your priority is, right? Like if you are like a hoarder of money, right? Like, or that you like can't get above a certain number, like all of those things, like there's always little tiny nuances in money, and money's on the same line as love, right? So like if you feel like, usually if you're good at one, if you are balanced at one, you are balanced at the other. If you are way pulled to one side or the other, you have the opposite of that in your life.
Okay. Okay.
So like the more you can neutralize money, the more you can, it's a neutralizing of self. So then love becomes that way as well.
That's really interesting. I never really thought of money and love being on the same spectrum, but in hindsight, I can kind of see how, it's a motivator and, what drives people.
It's a lot about worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So like if you think you are worth this much, but you are spending out all of it, you don't actually believe that you are worth that much. Right? So like you are like good at like hustling and like playing the game, but you are not good at like, but you don't actually believe that it's yours. Right? Mm-hmm. Same with love, right? You might be able to get like the person that looks like a great match, but like the way you feel about it is like you don't actually deserve it. So like that's like the inner work that you have to do.
Okay. No, but that's seriously so.
We went seriously, woo on the Mills Knows Bills today, but
no, that's okay. I like the different perspectives, and I think money is emotional. Relationships are emotional. We talk about people getting married, and money and love sometimes just don't mix. So being able to identify those blockages so you can really improve your overall well-being is really important.
Yeah. And it's also like something that people have been taught to not talk about.
Correct.
Right? So like there's shame involved in it. You make too much, you keep that quiet. You make too little, you keep that quiet. So like all of that gets like put into your emotional being, and then you make up all kinds of stories about it, and you make up lots of self-limiting beliefs about it.
Okay.
Right? So like if you can only earn like, I'll be doing well if I make 50,000, but if I make 100,000, I believe that rich people are selfish, jerks, whatever the thing is. Oh, okay, but if I made 200,000, then I would be, awful, right? And so like whatever the things that you are saying about that, it's then that is your belief that if that happens to you, right? So you might be able to get to 50 real easy. You're like, oh, here's my thing. Then you can get to 100 and you're like, well, I'm still a good person. But 200 would be too much. So you'll do your body will just do stuff to sabotage it.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess this leads into one of my final questions then. Do you have any advice in general for someone watching this video?
Challenge everything you think.
Okay.
The thing to me is like, you really have to like, to change anything within yourself, you have to really look at it. So it's like, make it a practice to be like, one of the things I like doing is like, I believe money is, write it down and just let come what's going to come next. Just keep writing over and over. I believe that money is evil. I believe money is great. I believe, and change. And so you also might not be all the way on one side, right? Like you understand, oh, money buys me this, and that's good. But this piece over here that my dad controlled me with money, that's bad, right? So then you're in the like limbo of the two. But if you can see your own thoughts, that's how you make change that, is lasting.
Okay. So I think this has been a very interesting and engaging conversation, and I really, really have enjoyed it. If someone watching this video wants your help identifying their money blocks or changing their mindset, challenging their thoughts, or everything in between, how can they do so? How can they reach out to you?
You can always find me on Instagram at Jaime Nolan. My website is Time to Be You, and yeah, and Facebook, wherever I'm around.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's been probably one of my favorites yet. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you too.